What does Posty have for me? Oh, I know what that is. Ha ha! Been looking forward to this. So shamelessly, this is another new camera video. However, I am holding Thomas Heaton solely responsible for this new camera. On the day that this is being recorded, a few weeks ago, Thomas released a video where he bought a new toy to play with. And I was very inspired by his experience. And the new toy that he bought, he actually did, was he got one of his cameras converted to infrared, to take infrared images. Now, infrared's not a new thing for me. I have actually been playing with infrared. So I've got one of these infrared filters that you stick over the lens and it gives you a very red picture because it's only letting infrared frequencies of light through. Then in software, you convert it to black and white and you have a play with contrast and blacks and whites and so forth to get that white foliage, ghostly, almost film negative effect. This was relatively inexpensive. If I can find out how much one of these is today, this is a 62mm version. I'll stick it in a caption somewhere just to give you an idea as to how much these things are. But it enabled me to have a play with infrared. The downside of one of these is that the shutter speed shoots up or shoots down depending on your point of view, but the shutter is open for a very long time. Now for me that's not a big deal because I like silky water, moving clouds, things like that. But what the video that Thomas released demonstrated was that having the camera converted to infrared properly meant that I could take sharp images that don't have cloud movements, that capture the sky as it was or as it is. And I kind of sat back and thought, you know what, I quite like the idea of being able to do that. So I had a look on eBay and had a scoot around at cameras that had already been converted to infrared. And the reason for doing that is to have a camera converted to infrared, it's around about the £200 mark. I don't really want to make that kind of investment. I wanted to keep the price a little bit lower. I was also aware, and Thomas actually said this himself, that this is something for him to have a play with in the summer months. And I kind of feel the same way. This is going to be a plaything, a toy that enables me to go out into the landscape during the summer on bright sunshiny days and play with compositions. Maybe I'll get the odd image that I think, you know what, I really like that. But that's not my expectation. So I've not opened this. This arrived today. It's completely unopened. So this is live unboxing. Let's see how this goes together. Don't put the blade all the way out here because you don't want to damage the camera. So this is a second-hand camera that has been converted to infrared. Now I had some choices. There were quite a few choices. And I did look at whether I went and got a full frame Canon or something like that. But the prices were quite extensive for that level of camera conversion, even buying one second hand. So like I say, I'm just doing this to give me an opportunity to play in the same way that Thomas got. So let's have a look. It's exceptionally well packaged. Oh, hang on, let's tip it that way so you can see it. There we go. So what have we got in the box? We've got a nice little note saying thank you very much for your purchase, hope you're pleased with it, and a contact email address. So we have a battery charger and a lead and a strap. I won't show you those because otherwise that will give the game away. I'm being careful because I don't want to damage it. So what I ended up doing was leaning on the fact that I have got a small collection of micro four thirds lenses. And so I got myself a Panasonic DMC GX7. That one, that has been converted to infrared. And of course now I can put one of my micro four thirds lenses on the front, relatively inexpensive. Out of all the cameras that were being advertised, it was the one that I liked the most because it has a flip-up EVF, which is very similar to my Sigma. I quite like the idea of that. And it's also got a nice flip screen. Reminds me of my old EM5, my original EM5. And it was a flip screen that I really liked. Should have a battery inside it. Yes, it does. No memory card, which is what I expected. I could probably do with cleaning it up a little bit. It's a bit grubby in places, but that's fine, right? It's a second-hand camera. I'm not going to complain about that. So, shall we get a micro four thirds lens out? By the way, welcome to my playroom. This is where all the magic that's not in the landscape actually happens. So, what have we got here? This is a 9-18. An Olympus 9-18mm lens. I've got a 12-50 somewhere as well, but right, okay, so let's stick a lens on, take the lens cap off, just unlock it, and let's hit on and see what happens. Please set the clock. Fair enough. And there we go. Nice, clear display. Now clearly I need to take it out into the landscape and go and have a play with it, but today it's very overcast, very dull, so I need to set this camera up. Clearly I need to download the manual and just make it work for me. So next time you see me with this camera, I shall be outside in the landscape, probably walking the dog, because you know, as I say, this is a toy to have a play with. So yeah, let's get out into the landscape and go and have a play. See you out there. So you know, I said I'd see you out in the landscape. Well, I actually didn't make it any further than my back garden, which I know is a bit bizarre, but I decided it was probably a good idea, having, you know, had a look at the manual and got the camera set up and all that jazz. I figured it was probably a good idea to go and have a play with the camera in my back garden, make sure it actually did all the things it should do, write to the card, all that sort of nonsense. So I came out to my back garden and the sun is trying to come through. It's not wild, but it's just given me an opportunity to play. And what I've noticed, or what I've come to realize, is that my back garden isn't very photogenic. No disrespect to my back garden, but as a landscape photographer's subject, it's not necessarily somewhere where I would choose to go. Although I have just been joined by the cat. Let me turn the camera around. There you go. There's my cat enjoying herself on the now nice warm patio. Mad animal. Anyway, where was I? So in the process of using the camera in my back garden, I'm seeing this place I know very, very well, in a completely different light, literally, and from a completely different standpoint. Probably the easiest thing for me to do is sort of show you the scene that I'm pointing my camera at, and then actually show you what's on the back of the camera, and maybe it would make a little bit more sense. So let me just try and do that. Okay, so there's my garden scene. This is only going to be approximate because, of course, this video camera is 16:9, but I have an apple tree here. I've got some, I think they're bean canes. Where we've got over here, a bench and a shed. And then you've got the line of the patio slabs coming in from the left. and you've got a border down here. It's green, it's not particularly interesting, it's a little bit boring, maybe, I don't know. But let's do the same scene, but on the back of an infrared camera. But this is the LCD screen view on the back of the camera, and hopefully you can see what I mean about the scene just looking so completely different. And in fact, the sun has come out really strong, creating a really nice shadow underneath the tree. So I'm just going to take an image there and then. So the tree is bright. The items behind it are comparatively dark. The shadow is dark, creating an interesting shape. The items that are on the left and the right are holding the corners. The line of the patio is a lot more defined, a lot more noticeable in infrared. And then you've got this, this slight cloud detail up in the sky, but not distracting from the shapes and the textures. What's going on in the raised border at the back, that's a lot more noticeable and prominent, and it's a pleasing sort of zigzag shape. I'd never seen the garden like this ever, and it's really, really opened my eyes to the potential for infrared photography. Right, so while I get myself set up with another scene, the sun is coming and going, I would like to make the point, I don't think any of these images are necessarily going to make a portfolio, or I don't know, maybe one or two might if, they really come out really dramatic and really, really striking. Would I put them into a UK Camera Club competition? Maybe, if the theme of that competition was such that, such an image would do reasonably well. But other than that, at the moment, this is just a different and fun way to explore the world around me and seeing it. I'm trying to avoid seeing it in a different light, because of course I am seeing it in a different light. I'm only seeing it in infrared reflected light. But one of the things I think some landscape photographers struggle with in the summer is these bright, harsh, sunshiny days. And where, certainly here in the UK, where everything is green. And the summer green tends to be it's a dark green. It's not exactly incredibly photogenic and incredibly interesting to look at. I think at the moment anyway, having this infrared camera to play with is going to give me the opportunity to go out into the landscape, see it differently, but still experiment with compositions and views and just keep the photographic juices ticking over, so that as summer comes to an end and we start to go into autumn, I'm not sort of picking up the camera and learning from scratch. Because I've kept the process ticking over, I can just pick up the camera and go straight into autumn without having to learn all of those things that you learn when you go out every other day with the camera, and it all becomes second nature. So the view that I'm looking at now is this one. It's our Acer, which is in the back of the garden, or in the back corner of the garden. And what's attracting me here is shapes. So let me move the camera around. So we have a main trunk here which splits, and then you've got other branches going off in other directions. In the autumn, it's wonderful because all of this foliage turns yellow and red and brown, and it's warm and it's inviting and it's appealing. Now we've still got a little bit of spring growth, so there's some fresh green down there that's a lot more enticing, I suppose, than that green. But in infrared light, all of these leaves glow, and they glow in a slightly different way, but it allows this shape in the trunks to take center stage. So that's the view that I've chosen, that of this tree, which shows off the tree trunk. And please note, I've still kept all of the usual compositional preferences. So, you know, the tree trunk comes out of the bottom. There's just a little bit of leaf at the bottom to anchor it. I've tried to avoid dark sides. I've got a little bit of a dark spot here, but not too bad. And, you know, if it really bothers me in post, I could probably clone over it and get away with it. But the shape of the tree is what I'm trying to get the viewer to focus in on. That's what the image is about. But everything behind it is pale, and it's feathery, and it's soft, and it's not competing with this shape. And ordinarily you just don't see this tree like this. So yeah, I'm going to repeat myself ever so slightly and just state that this is eye-opening. I didn't imagine this would happen. I did not imagine that I'm just waiting for the sun to come out again. It's gone behind a cloud. I didn't imagine that infrared would enable me to see my garden in this way. In fact, I wish actually that I discovered this during lockdown in the UK when we weren't allowed to leave our homes for 3 months or whatever, and the weather was beautiful. Had I discovered this then, I could actually have still practiced photography, still kept those juices flowing whilst making the most of my garden under a bright blue sky with lots of sun. But I didn't. I'm discovering it now. I have to thank Thomas Heaton for helping me discover it. But yeah, I'm just going to wait for the sun to come out, and then I'm going to take this image. This experience in my back garden has actually made me think, do you know what? My first foray out into the landscape proper, I don't think I'm going to go to, you know, I'm not going to go to the Lake District. I'm not going to go to a popular coastal location here in Dorset. I'm going to go somewhere, I was going to say relatively mundane, that's unfair, but I'll take the camera, the infrared camera, when I walk the dog, and I'll go to somewhere where I've walked the dog and actually view it through slightly different eyes. I know this has been a little bit haphazard, but it's been haphazard for me as well, and I hope that comes across. But I hope it's been interesting. I hope it's been inspiring. If it has, go and research, go and find an infrared camera. But I think a bit like myself, don't go and spend huge amounts of money. Just dip a toe in and see how it plays out. But until we are next back out in the landscape, take care, stay safe, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye for now.